Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to yet another installment in my Mortal Kombat Lost and Forgotten series, where we take an obscure character from the MK mythos who has been lost to time, analyse their significance to the universe, what did they bring to it that made them so unique, as well as their ultimate fate in the series. Because whilst many of these faces don't make it very far off the cutting room floor, the legacy would live on through other individuals, and there's no better character to talk about today than to cover an individual that had an incredibly big impact in the long run of MK. I'm of course talking about the lost god of chaos, and godfather of the chaos realm itself, Zaggot. Now Zaggot is a truly interesting and unique character in the world of MK, because Zaggot himself is a character that derives from a spin-off comic of yet another spin-off comic. It's really perplexing. However, Zaggot's creation in itself would come at a point in the series where MK was still kind of in its infancy, where it was still taking shape, growing and forming into what we know of it today. Thus, the God of Chaos himself could honestly be seen as the blueprint for what we did get during the 3D era. But with that said, what did we know of Zaggot himself? What was his role during his limited run in the series? And how exactly did he go on to impact MK? That is what we will be exploring in today's video and analysis. But before we do begin, as always, quick reminder that if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It's a small thing, but it goes miles in supporting the series as a whole. But anyway, let's delve right into things. Now as mentioned, Zaggot appears at a truly interesting point in the series, where the foundation of MK was still being laid out, including the world, the realms, and the characters. They were kind of all over the place at this point in time. And of course, during this time in the mid-90s, the series itself would really blow up, having come off the controversy of the ESRB creation, capitalizing upon it in a number of different ways. This went from animated movies to Broadway shows to live action movies, but most infamously during the 90s, a tie-in comic book series. Published on the Malibu Comics, this line would be a direct spin-off of the franchise, being a very loose retelling of the tournament, done with a fresh canvas, one that allowed them to expand the lore of the series, even if it wasn't exactly canon. And the comic itself would be written by co-creator and narrative lead John Tobias, being accompanied by Ted Adams and John Vogel. Now the benefit of this line being non-canon actually allowed them to explore a lot of new and fresh ideas, for better and for worse, but the comics really did serve a purpose in that manner, laying out the foundation for future ideas, as well as being a good measuring stick for what works and what really doesn't in MK. But what about Zaggot now? Well, he would appear during one of the many spin-off comics, Mortal Kombat Goro, Prince of Pain, released in 1994. In this limited 3-arc story, Zaggot would serve as the prime antagonist of it, having shown a keen interest in Prince Goro. Now in terms of lore, origin and backstory, Zaggot's background is largely shrouded in mystery, because at the time of his debut, the Chaos Realm was yet to actually be a thing. In fact, the only thing that we do know about Zaggot, and how old he is that he predates the gods themselves, and if anything, is a physical manifestation of chaos, just one that takes a form of this physical being. Because of his somewhat primordial status, he is deemed as a god and beyond, utilizing divine power which allows him to transverse the realms freely, something not capable at this point in time in the series. But Zaggot would not be the only god formed at the dawn of creation, with his equal and opposite brother being Abacus. Now, with both having been the physical manifestation of order and chaos, the two were always at each other's throats on the ethereal plane, with neither being able to best the other. And that's largely due to the fluctuating power of order and chaos. One was not always stronger than the other. It changed on a constant basis. And it wasn't for a lack of trying, as we'll learn. Now, in terms of design, powers, and abilities, Zaggot has ancient primordial status, even in the terms of modern day MK. He is a formidable sorcerer, whose skills and talents dabble into that of a creator level, allowing him to grant life, destruction, and damnation. And keep in mind that this sort of power level will fluctuate higher and or lower, so the more chaos that is tossed into the world, the stronger he can become. it's actually why he hadn't appeared at any other point before these events, because he simply wasn't strong enough yet. The feud between Outworld and Earthrealm had been going on for so long, but it generated enough chaos for him to enter the material plane. But do not be fooled by his Wizard of Oz inspired appearance. This is merely one of his projections, with his true form being a hulking juggernaut that rivals the size of Goro himself, fully decked out with wings and a beak, very similar to that of a crow. Now, in terms of narrative significance, Zaggot plays a really minor role in the grand calculus of the overarching story. But even so, he is the prime antagonist of the Prince of Pain run, having developed a keen interest in Goro, and looking to have him be his champion. For Zaggot, at this point in time, had amassed enough strength and power to take Outworld for himself, simply looking for someone to help ease him into that role. However, the Shogun Prince would dismiss his wishes, and does turn against him, believing his madness to be far too dangerous to lead such a world. But the Architect of Chaos did have a backup plan in mind, utilizing the DNA of Goro, as well as a number of different fighters. Zaggot is able to create a being known as the Combatant, which is this homunculi amalgamation of a number of different fighters across realms. So as expected, the Combatant would easily overpower the Prince, allowing the Mad God to then lead his charge against Outworld, battling the forces of the Khan. It's only until the Prince returns with a weapon from Abacus and dismantles the Combatant, which forces Zaggot to take a much more on-hands role, entering his true form and confronting the Prince. Yet Goro was able to see past this facade, knowing that this was all merely just a way to orchestrate more chaos. He refuses to fight back, causing the Chaos God to shrink in size, until he's nothing more than a snack for the Shogun. Even so, whilst he is defeated, we come to learn that he is far from dead, having simply been yet another manifestation of chaos. And it's revealed that the entire time, he's been effectively playing chess with Abacus on the ethereal plane, moving the pieces and players to see whom would win, with Zaggot understandably not just bitter at his brother, but also Goro himself, swearing to crush him in the near future. But this would be the one and only time Zaggot appears in the comic book line, having not returned in any future installments. But why did I mention him at all here? Did he even warrant his own history of episode? Well, honestly, yeah. You see, while Zaggot himself may have been a drop in the puddle, Zaggot can more or less be seen as the blueprint for the Chaos Realm, and what John Tobias may have left prior to the 3D trilogy, it more or less served as a foundation for a multitude of different concepts and ideas at this time, simply just something not fully realized or capitalized upon during Tobias' time at the studio. Thus, it's undeniable that the creation of Zaggot most certainly played a hand in the creation of Havoc and the Chaos Realm. Plus, we gotta keep in mind that with the departure of Tobias, the role of narrative lead did fall into the hands of John Vogel, you know, one of the creative minds on the Malibu comic book line. So the seeds of these ideas were sown in very, very early on, just simply without a foundation or direction at the time. So what becomes of Zaggot from this point? Well, he's not doing so hot. You see, the Order and Chaos Realm would only be officially canonized during the events of Mortal Kombat Deception, having been a bit of an accompanying piece to the game's main story mode, and with information of the Chaos Realm having always been scarce, with its only representative being Havoc, it's been quite hard to track down the history and background of this realm, as Zaggot himself has never actually officially appeared in the main canon. But there is an indication that he could have indeed been present here, for at the dawn of the Chaos Realm itself, when it was given another name, the god that was appointed to guard it, known as a Chaos God, would cause a huge seismic event, known by the Chaos Realmers as the Cataclysm, having physically combusted, sending rips, crackles and tears throughout the land, poisoning it with his madness, and corrupting any and all inhabitants that would be born into this world. And so was born the Chaos Realm. Now again, whilst this god wasn't given a name, I do feel like it's pretty safe to assume that this must have been Zaggot, because all of the pieces are there for his creation, as he kind of existed on an ethereal plane, and did like to influence those with chaos. It does make sense how something like this could work. And although whilst he isn't currently present, his legacy does live on through others, and through a very worthy successor in Havoc. So with that said and everything covered here, what are your thoughts on Zaggot in the series? Would you like to see him maybe make a return in the future? Please do comment down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. And of course, if you do have any other obscure characters you'd like to hear me talk about, please put them down in the comments below. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and I'll catch you in the next one.